I have a bit of a preface for you for what my message is about. My oldest son, Amos, told me about 6 or 7 years ago, "Dad, I heard a band you need to know about." And he told me about the Old Crow Medicine Show. Well, they're sort of an interesting bunch of guys. They've only been at it about 15 years, I've learned. But they've got a Grammy this year, and the music they make is pretty remarkable. So this is how we're going to proceed for the next minute or so. I'm going to read the lyrics of the song that we're going to hear. And it's a white sheet in your order of service. So if you want to find that, you can read along with me, and as we're seeing the video here, which may be questionable quality. My EV techs have let me down this morning, and I'm totally embarrassed about it. No, they've done such a wonderful job. I'm just challenging them a little bit here. So let me read this to you. And I do this because, just like is imagined, I think this song sort of has a spiritual, religious quality and power to it that really touches who we are. I hear the crying of the hunger in the deserts where they're wandering. Hear them crying out for heaven's own benevolence upon them. Hear destructive power prevailing. I hear fools falsely hailing to the crooked wits of tyrants when they call. I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. I hear the sounds of tearing pages and the roar of burning paper and the crimes of acquisition turn to air and ash and vapor and the rattle of the shackle far beyond emancipators and the loneliness who gather in the stalls. I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. So while you sit and whistle Dixie with your money and your power, I can hear the flowers are growing in the rubble of the towers. I hear leaders quit their lying. I hear babies quit their crying. I hear soldiers quit their dying, one and all. I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. I hear the tender words from Zion. I hear Noah's waterfall. Hear the gentle Lamb of Judah sleeping at the feet of Buddha. And the prophets from Elijah to the old Paiute Wovaka take their place at the table when they're called. I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. Gospel for our times. A part of what I've tried to do most of my speaking life is to practice integrity toward words and language. Sometimes I stumble at it, but most of the time I do try. I had the great pleasure and honor as a high school student to have a former Broadway actress from our hometown return home and take up teaching speech in our local high school. And one of the things she did as a daily practice of us in her little classroom on the side of the room by the stage in the auditorium, we did vocabulary. And we had 3 words a day, every day we were in class, to learn and come back the next day to apply and use properly in a sentence and in context. So when I talk about a gospel for our times, I want to talk about what I'm going to talk about first. A gospel, the word gospel, comes from the Old English, which is so much a source of many of our words. And that came from some type of corruption or misuse of the Latin words by our ancestors in the British Isles, those of us who are from there. And it basically meant a good spell, a good story, a God story, a good message, a good idea. Well, in the years and days that followed, the Christian, as they were prone to do and very capable, they absorbed a lot of the culture and languages of the world, and gospel became in the vernacular in the world of the church and in basic life in Europe. The Gospels had to do with the story of Jesus and his introduction of the new covenant, of him bringing the word of grace, and then his church later, through Paul and others, commemorating that act through the words and the ordinances and the rituals of the sacrament. So gospel had to do with good news, a good message, and basically focused around the idea of Christianity and that story. But it can have a broader use. And I want to stretch the word this morning to share it with you of what I think we're about, what we might be able to say to these times. Because I will argue with some folks that we are in a post-religious time, especially in the Western world, in the privileged world. Religion doesn't have its place anymore. It doesn't have the power in culture. It doesn't influence. And the influence we see around the world, too much of it is negative and destructive, violent, divisive, and it's just a corruption of what I think the best of religion is about. Because the religion is the ideals and the hopes and the images and the best that the world can figure out about how to live in life. But a lot of that is perpetrated by folks who have nothing like that in mind. So what do we have to say as Unitarian Universalists? What's our good story? What's our good word? How do we move? Well, I think we just take the sentiment of Imagine, and I hear them all. First of all, it's an invitation for people to be aware of the world they're into, to deal with reality close in hand. It's not about getting out of life. It's not about finding the right words to say, rules to apply to our lives, behavior to express, so that we can get out of life successfully, to heaven, to paradise, to history, whatever that might mean. I think our gospel is how to get through life as an agent of love and possibility, of looking at the best that truth can teach us. And I want to talk about truth a minute. Truth are those things and those actions and those ideas that apply, when applied, benefit and bless life. The lies and the falsehoods are those things that separate, corrupt, poison life. So when we say truth in the sense of truth, we serve truth, we're seeking truth, we're seeking those ideas and those actions and those ethics and those morals to direct our being and becoming in such a way that we bless life, that we touch it with healing hands, that we lift up those who are broken, that we move through with a sense of purpose and idealism that can mean a difference in life. Because my sense of theology and my understanding of what that God was named in history, what we call God, is an energy in the universe that moves toward life. But we're called into halftime, 49% of the operation. We can jeopardize it, we can poison it, we can make choices that corrupt it. So when we're invited to move with the 51% of reality, the 51% of the power, our 49% into a direction and a purpose and an intent that makes life worthy, makes life possible. It lifts it. And I'm sitting in a room here, and we are privileged. We in this room very seldom have been face to face with poverty, have been face to face with oppression, have been face to face with physical violence. But we know it's there. And if we can have empathy, if we can imagine both the beautiful and the bad, we can also get in touch with powers of empathy. And if we can have powers of empathy and let those muscles of empathy be exercised, we can be about being agents of justice. And if we are able agents of justice, we can see in a world a possibility and a hope to make it for these children and children of all colors in every situation having a possibility of a meaningful, beautiful life. So the gospel of our times is that we move through life with a purpose that says, let's be respectful. Let's learn reverence again, not for a God in the sky, but for the life around us, for the sustaining planet that nurtures us, that feeds us, that provides a safe place for us. Let's look at issues of that our pettiness, our need for aggrandizement, our need for luxury, our need for ease. Let us look at what those mechanisms, those applications, those industries, those concerns, how much they cost us, how much they cost the health of life. And we figure out the value of things. And we figure out that we don't want to pay that anymore. We want to look at another way of being in the world, whether it be pollution, whether it be hate. We have a message of love and hope that can be applied to the world, and that's our gospel. The news story is pretty simple. We're in this together. We have an opportunity to apply our creativity to the business practices, the ethical practices, the legal practices, all the ways we are in the world. And it's pretty simple. We find those things that work. We find those things that bless the most people. we find those opportunities to share and lift and be one with another. What is holy in that? What is hopeful in that? What is the good story, the God spell, the good spell? It's possibility. It's hope. It's moving beyond the heartache of where we are right now to see what's possible. And it's not getting away from it, it's getting through it. James Baldwin said once upon a time that the water rises, the wind blows, the children hold on to us, and we hold on to one another. That's basically what it's about. It's a growing and it's a moving in life that brings us to an understanding that it's up to us. We're not going to be rescued by some great philosopher. We're not going to be rescued by some God coming down from on high. We're not going to be rescued by some power, whether it be a sword or the influence of brainwashing. We're going to be by the wit you and I share one with another, to be good people, to look beyond our own selfishness to what's good for all of us. It calls us to an awareness. We see them all. We hear them all. We imagine. We look beyond where we are. We see in nursing homes. We see in nurseries. We see in hospitals. We see in broken places around this town lives that have been injured, lives that are hopeless. We can't fix them. We cannot, but we can be agents in a culture that says, let's make that a less possible route. Let's make that less prevalent in our culture. And how do we do that? We do that by caring. We get outside of ourselves and know that we're not going to get out of this life alive. We're going to get out of this life only if we can negotiate in such a way that we bless it. And I'd like for people to say, at death, he's a good guy, rather than he was a successful guy. Success is a waning thing. Goodness is something that endures. And your children know it, and your legacy knows it. So the gospel is not think much better, think more creatively. The new gospel is love more sincerely, love more radically, embrace that which is different, learn from the gifts of others. And it's always there, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. I'd much rather be an old mean man. It's a lot easier. I do that well. I'm natural to that. But you guys force me to sort of love you and care about you and care about what you care about. And that's problematic, because the worst thing in the world that someone can is to feel helpless. And sometimes we can just stand together. That's all we can do. And I'm an old cynic. I don't like glib words. Don't give me no glib words. But you can hug me and hold my hand, and I know you know how big a deal something might be. What's our gospel for our times? Stay steady on course. Look to that possibility. Remember who's around you. And as James Baldwin said, hold hands. And look to love and the agents of love and what love can manifest. And I'm not talking about the cheap stuff. Y'all know I don't mean that. Love's the hardest thing in the world. Love is looking at somebody, I don't like you, you smell, and you're from the wrong part of the world. I don't like you, but I must love you. I must acknowledge, as our first principle says, respect and work for your worth and dignity. I must see you as a part of the interdependent whole that we are. We are part. And I must see all that's around us as something that lifts us and nurtures us. So I've got to sit down with you, knocking heads, being patient, listen to your BS, all that kind of good stuff to get to a point where we can move forward. And that kind of love takes work, and it takes patience, and it takes intent. So I encourage you to be with me, an apprentice in love, to learn how it's done, even at the age you are, and to know that there's more to learn, there's more to apply. And will it make any difference? I don't know. Possibly not. I know what the opposite will do. The opposite will just starve you and drain you and dry you up, and you will die. But if you are engaged, you have an opportunity to be alive. And if you're alive, you have an opportunity to serve. May we be about service, and may the gospel that saves us, the gospel that inspires us, be about love. Amen. Be gentle with yourselves. Be gentle with the world. See you next time.